Safiyya Traders Bookstore's weekly book introduction, and this is Samil. This week we are going to introduce to the viewers an opportune book, a well-timed book. That is the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, Where We Stand. The Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, Where We Stand. Actually, to put it in a more comfortable fashion, it's a booklet. It's a compilation by Rajaram, Thallur. This is a concise booklet, though we are left with no other option but to introduce this to the viewers given the most turbulent times that we live in. Being concise with lesser number of pages doesn't override the significance of this booklet, taking into account the void that is now in place when it comes to a more comprehensive book that could actually explicate and bring to the fore the fallacies clouding the Unconstitutional Amendment, i.e. the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, CAA 2019. So before moving on with the introduction of this booklet, I would like to share some of the contentions of two of the most erudite, impartial legal scholars, their contentions vis-a-vis the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. The first scholar's contention is that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 completely negates the ideals of secularism, equality and justice enshrined in the Indian Constitution. In order to reinforce his assertion, he quotes the verdict given by the Supreme Court in the year 1973. In 1973, in the Keshwananda Bharati case, the Supreme Court clearly ruled that secularism is the basic structure of Indian Constitution and therefore it cannot be altered by the Parliament. So there is, there is a mistaken belief that secularism was added to the Indian Constitution only in the year 1976. And prior to 1976, the Constitution was not secular, and this is a mistaken belief. Secularism was part and parcel of Indian. It's an integral part of Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution was founded on the basis of on the ideals of freedom of religion, faith, and belief. So secularism is an integral part of Indian Constitution. Therefore, the Citizenship Amendment Act, which consciously excludes Muslims, from the list of religions included, clearly violates the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. Not only that, India has a rich tradition, centuries-old tradition of compassion and brotherhood. India welcomed religions from outside, all religions from outside with open arms. There is no hostility, there is no rancor, there is no grudge, ill feelings. It welcomed all religions. The framers of the Indian Constitution consciously kept away from, taking religion, considering religion as an identifier for providing citizenship. They consciously kept away from that. Not only that, they consciously kept away from caste, language and other types of artificial things. So the only thing that decides one's citizenship is shared identity. So taking this into account, the legal scholar says that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 is therefore a betrayal of India's rich tradition, centuries-old tradition of compassion and brotherhood. Home Minister Amit Shah's assertion seems completely illogical, irrational, and to the detriment of the Constitution of India when he says that Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh and Christian refugees from Pakistan have as much right as you and I. Okay. they are the, he says, they are the sons and daughters of the soil. Okay, a question spontaneously arises at this juncture. Does the Constitution accept that these religions have a greater claim over India than Islam? Does the Constitution of India accept this? The Home Minister Amit Shah is absolutely wrong. The Constitution did not assign the country to any particular religion. Religion is not, the it's not an identifier, it's not a condition for grant of citizenship. For the first time, conversely, for the first time, religion is used as a condition for grant of citizenship. So, therefore, the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 cannot be justified on the ground that persons of these particular religion are sons and daughters of the soil. It cannot be justified. All persons belonging to all religion are sons and daughters of the soil. Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist and Christian refugees from Pakistan were all part of the same country, same land before partition. Well, if that's the case, the same logic applies to Muslims also. The Pakistani Muslims have as much right as a Pakistani Hindu or a Pakistani Christian. According to the same logic, the logic of Amit Shah, if a Muslim is persecuted in Pakistan for some reasons, then India should surely give him refugee. He should be entitled to the same benefits given to persons of other religions that has been listed in the Constitution, included in the Constitution, in the Citizenship Amendment Bill. Okay, so taking all of this into account, the legal scholar contends with absolute confidence that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 contradicts or contravenes the Constitution's commitment to secularism. It absolutely contradicts the Constitution's commitment to secularism. So another important question here that has to be dealt with is, does the Citizenship Amendment Act violates Article 14's guarantee of equal treatment under the law? Under the law. And this is an important question at this juncture, which of course depends on whether one considers those 6 religions from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan to constitute a reasonable classification or an arbitrary one. Whether it's a reasonable classification or an arbitrary one. So the answer for this question, that whether or not the Citizenship Amendment Act violates Article 14's guarantee of equal treatment under the law, depends upon how one considers this classification, whether it is a reasonable classification or an arbitrary one. Article 14 is applicable to all persons. It is not restricted to citizens. Also, there are certain classifications that are permissible in Article 14, whereby persons or subjects could be included or excluded, etc. But there are 3 main conditions for a classification to be permissible under Article 14. There are 3 main conditions. The first condition is that classification has to be reasonable. The second condition is that the classification has to be rational and it should have an nexus with the objective. The third main condition is that the classification has to be non-arbitrary. It should not be arbitrary. Okay, now let us examine under this light. Let us examine this particular law, the Citizenship Amendment Act. Why the Indian government, the Indian legislature has chosen only 3 countries? It's beyond anybody's comprehension. Why 3 countries? If you are looking at, take a look at Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not part of the whole British India. So if somebody is looking at countries that are part of British India, then it is absolutely contradictory when you have chosen Afghanistan. Okay. The second thing is, when you are looking at the religious states, only religious states, then of course, again, Sri Lanka and Myanmar are excluded from the list, because of course these are religious states in every sense of the word. Sri Lanka and Myanmar are Buddhist majority states, and both these countries have a history of persecution. Sri Lanka has a history of persecution of the Tamils, and we know that Rohingya Muslims has been persecuted. They have experienced a genocide, potential genocide in Myanmar. So why these states are excluded? Again, it is contradictory. The next important point is, why only 6 religions? Why Muslims are excluded? This is a wrong presumption that Muslims are persecutors, and they are not persecuted. The government is trying to present this picture to everyone that Muslims are persecutors alone and they are not persecuted. See, Muslims are persecuted to a lesser degree, to a far lesser degree. Certain groups of Muslims has been persecuted in Pakistan. Muslims has been to a more intensified degree. Muslims has been persecuted in Myanmar. They have been experiencing this genocide in Myanmar. The International Court of Justice has recently given the verdict that the Myanmar government has committed genocide against its minority Muslim population. So Muslims are undergoing persecution. Muslims are persecuted in the neighboring countries. Not only that, there could also be persecution because that person, a particular person, happens to be an atheist. Okay, a particular person happens to be a liberal, and for that he could be persecuted. So this classification under Article 14 is completely irrational and it is arbitrary. Another important thing is that the northeastern states like Manipur, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Assam, Tripura, etc. has been excluded from the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. So, for example, if a Buddhist or a Sikh or a Hindu, takes refuge in that northeastern part of India, then they are not entitled to citizenship. They are not entitled to the benefit given by this particular legislation. And so, according to this legal scholars' contention, looking at this law, this Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 from any angle, it is irrational and arbitrary and is not reasonable either. So, on multiple counts, the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 violates Article 14 of the Constitution. Not only does it violate Article 14 of the Constitution, but it is also incompatible with the vision of the framers of the Constitution of India. Another legal scholar gives us his opinion on this issue. He provides us with some fresh insights, and I want you to pay close attention to this. He says that Article 14 of the Constitution, which of course guarantees equal treatment to anyone and everyone before the law, it certainly permits certain types of class legislation. Okay, it permits what is known as reasonable classification. Reasonable classification. Some of this might sound somewhat complex, but what the Supreme Court, the test that the Supreme Court has laid to actually examine what constitutes a reasonable classification is actually rather simple and quite elegant. It broadly requires 3 tests, 3 criterias to examine what constitutes a reasonable classification. The first one is that one ought to test the objective of the law. We are to test the objective of the law. The objective of the law should be non-arbitrary. It should not be arbitrary. Thereafter we move on to the two-pronged test, and that is the test of intelligible differentia and rational nexus. Intelligible differentia and rational nexus. Intelligible differentia means you should be able to separate the class that the law protects from the class that the law does not protect, and therefore consequentially the differentiation that you make should have the classification that you make should have a rational nexus with the objective the law seeks to achieve. Okay, so this is the first, the second test, the second criteria. The first one is arbitrariness; it should not be arbitrary. Second one is intelligible differentia, and the third one, of course, is rational nexus. The legal scholar argues that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 fails on all these three fronts. It abruptly fails on all these three fronts. Because at the outset, if you look at the objective of the law is purely arbitrary. Because if the objective of the law is to protect minorities from these countries who fled religious persecution, then there is absolutely no excuse for not including Ahmadiyyas. Logically, rationally and reasonably, there is absolutely no excuse for not including Ahmadiyyas who are virtually treated as minorities in Pakistan. Okay, the second one is intelligible differentia. The second front is intelligible differentia, and again there is a problem, because when you are trying to differentiate between non-Muslims from these neighboring countries with Muslims from these neighboring countries and even Muslims from other neighboring countries, then you are not making a differentia that is clearly intelligible. Okay. The third one is about rational nexus. Once again, you claim that the objective of the law is to protect people who flee religious persecution. Then there is absolutely again no excuse for not including Myanmar and not including Sri Lanka, because we actually know that Rohingya Muslims has faced genocide in Myanmar and they fled their country because of religious persecution. So also, persecution in the sense, you can't only say that we are going to protect people who flee from their countries because of religious persecution alone, because there are other forms of persecution, including political persecution. And what's the reason the Tibetans are fled to India from their country? So taking all these into account, the author clearly says, he confidently, unambiguously contends that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 on every possible front, on every conceivable front, is violative of Article 14. I repeat once again, on every conceivable front, on every possible front, the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 is violative of Article 14, and therefore it is violative of the Constitution, and therefore it is unconstitutional. The BJP government, the Modi government, under Amit Shah's Home Minister, has made an amendment which is absolutely out and out unconstitutional, and there is no doubt about it. It is patently, unambiguously clear. Here we are at the final phase of our book introduction this week, and I would like to wind up my book introduction with a few concluding statements which I hope would serve as a preamble to this book. Nowadays there are no representatives of the people who represent the aspirations of the people in the legislatures. The legislatures actually have opened up an sort of investment profit avenue for the people's, quote-unquote, people's representative. So given these extreme conditions in which we live in, people are fast losing hope in two of the main pillars of democracy, and that is the executive and the judiciary. Needless to speak about the fourth pillar of democracy, and that is the media. The mainstream media has gone too far, and they have been completely sold out. Okay, When I say they have been completely sold out, I mean what I say, because I remember sometimes I used to ponder or contemplate on the words of an intellectual who often used to say that nearly 33 mainstream medias are in the hands of the corporates, the multi-billionaires, the tycoons in India. So when I say that they have the mainstream medias have been completely sold out, I think it will not go. It's not going to. My statement is not going to take its toll upon those people who are aware, who are acquainted with the reality today. So people, what about the people? People are left deserted. Okay, they have to fight for their own rights. They have to protect they are duty bound to protect their own rights. Nobody is going to come and lend a helping hand to them. Nobody is going to protect their rights, let alone their lives. So in this context, here is an attempt, this is a booklet, here is an attempt to explain in simple and concise words answers to questions like what is citizenship, what is the background of the Citizenship Amendment Bill, and why is there so much anguish over the Citizenship Amendment Act in Assam especially in particular, and throughout the length and breadth of India in general, and what is meant by NPR, what is meant by NRC, and why there is so much agitations and protests over the Citizenship Amendment Bill, and where has the Citizenship Amendment Bill gone wrong, and what is the laborious procedures behind the Citizenship Amendment Act's groundwork. Also when it comes to the groundwork of the NPR and the NRC. So all these questions are explained in this book in a simple and concise manner in order to make the readers in order to give the readers more simple and lucid answers. The limitation of the book, however, is that it is an attempted stitch in time, just like the instant coffee or instant fast food. Instantly they will prepare and they will give it to you to eat. So akin to instant coffee and akin to instant food, it is an instant booklet. It is an attempted stitch in time. However, as I have mentioned in my speech, in the introduction of my speech, that nevertheless this is a booklet with the lesser number of pages. It is an indispensable one. It is an unavoidable read in this particular context, given the turbulent times in which we live in, and there is a void. There is actually a void because there is no comprehensive book on this topic until now. So, Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, where we stand. For orders, contact Safiyya Traders Bookstore, Nagarkoil. This is Samil. See you next week.